get the idea. So let's go ahead and race to the Traeger Grills hotline and welcome in Deon Bloomenrader. Deon, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Greg. How are you?
I'm absolutely fabulous, Deon. Appreciate you making the time this evening. And as I had mentioned, you were kind enough to share your story with me, and I was like, man, this would be great because how many of us, and I'm one of them, that have devised some kind of an original sauce? I mean, it all comes off of some kind of a weirdo recipe, but eventually you craft it and make it into your own and gets into the hands of family and friends have no idea about money or anything, and they just want to make sure they keep getting free stuff, so they tell you, your sauce is the best ever, you should get this thing to market. It's the whole deal. We've all been there if we've ever made a sauce. So before we get into some of that, let's get a quick background about you, what you might do professionally, and when you kind of got into the barbecue deal.
Yeah, I'm a farmer out here in the middle of South Dakota. Born and raised. That's all I've ever done is being a farmer. A friend of mine got me hooked up with another guy that was into barbecue. Built his own reverse offset stick burner, and came to town, did a rib contest, and asked me if I wanted to help, and I did. And I instantly got hooked on that whole process and the product that we were making on there. So him and I kind of joined up and created a team called Big Hoss Barbecue, and we try to do a lot of backyard competitions and stuff like that. He's doing a lot of catering with it, and I kind of got involved on the sauce end, or the trying to come up with different flavors, and it's just kind of taken off from there.
How long ago did you come up with, we're going to call it One Sauce because that's the name of the sauce that's going to be hitting the bottle here shortly, but when did One Sauce make an appearance, and how long did it take to craft into something that you figured was, I guess for lack of a better term, the one?
Well, I'll tell you, it happened here just this fall here.
Oh, wow.
The parents get together and we feed the football players on Thursday night before a Friday night game, and of course they kind of like what we're doing now with our barbecue. So I have a UDS. I have a Hunsacker UDS here at my house. So I cooked up some butt, and you can throw the barbecue sauce in there, and there's lots of choices. And I decided, well, I want to have two choices for the kids, so I want to come up with a South Carolina style mustard, and that was the inception of it. I started with that, and just started throwing stuff in a bowl and trial and error, and decided, and it went way off the course from being just mustard. But I tried this different recipe and threw it together, threw it in a bottle, and sent it with my son to that feed, and they really liked it. In fact, after it was all over, the coach requested that he could get a couple more bottles of that because he really liked it, and that's when the light went off in my head, and I thought, wow, this is something here, and it is, it is totally unique. I'll have to toot my own horn on that, but it is totally unique, and everyone that's tried it since. And I've got, friends and family, those are biased opinions, but it stretched out beyond that. And they all said, hey, this is really good. You should do something with this. And it just got me thinking, maybe I should. Why don't I try it?
Deon Bloomenrader talking to me here about One Sauce, which is his sauce that's getting ready to hit the bottles literally here. Can you explain then, or give me like the 30-second elevator pitch on how One Sauce tastes and what it works best on?
Yeah, that's the thing. It works, and it works on everything. It really does. We've been trying it on. I've got a whole list here. My friends and I, we sit around and we'll just try everything with it, and it seems to work with almost everything. It's kind of it started out life as a mustard sauce, but it's taken on a whole different dynamic, and it kind of swayed into it's got a little bit of an Asian-y realm to it. But yet it's appealing enough to the younger crowd. All my son and all his friends and everybody, they have actually, and that's when I knew I was really onto something. you serve them nuggets or whatever here as a quick snack, and they were reaching for that instead of the ranch. And ranch is the holy grail with the youth of America, and they were reaching for that instead. And I thought, okay, now we're reaching the youth. That's who we need. So it's kind of an Asian-inspired honey mustard, I guess is how I would call it.
Deon, what's the real driving force behind getting this sauce to market? I mean, if we're being honest with each other here, and this is what's going to be so magical about this quarterly documentary, if you will, is, the honesty that we're going to be able to transact back and forth. There's so many sauces out there anymore. I mean, 10 years ago, I would be like, man, this is great. I'm going to help you get to here. You're kind of hitting the stride. I mean, now you go down any grocery store chain, and you've heard it here on the show a bunch of times, there's half an aisle or a whole aisle or an aisle and a half of different barbecue and grilling stuff that range from rubs and marinades and sauces to everything else in between. Is there a thought, or was there a thought that you're like, hey, we're getting a lot of great feedback. Kids are reaching it instead of ranch. We think we want to do this, but the reality is there's so much stuff out there right now. It's going to be really hard to stand out from the crowd. We might just get lost in whatever else is the white noise.
Yep, and it's in the name of it. It's one sauce for all. And the reason I felt like I was compelled to take this to the next step is because it is so unique. And I've been through, every time I go to a grocery store, every time I go to a barbecue store or whatever, I go through the barbecue aisle, I go through the rubs aisle, I look at all that stuff because I really like that stuff. I'm always wanting to try different stuff. And it got to the point with the barbecue sauces, and this is not a knock on anybody because there's some fantastic barbecue sauces out there, but they're all the same. They're all based off of the same platform with some different techniques to them to change them a little bit. There was nothing totally unique. And when I come up with this, and it was just throwing stuff together with happenstance, it all of a sudden it's in its own category. It's totally unique. And I thought, I gotta see how far this goes. I gotta see if this is actually the new ranch or something like that. I had to see how far this could go. I just feel compelled to do it.
So what's the next step? You have everything tested out. You have really good independent feedback. Do you find a co-packer first, or do you start trying to figure out how much money that you're going to need to set aside or be on the spend initially? What do you tackle first?
Okay, the first thing I did was, of course, went online because there is one company here in South Dakota that's making a barbecue sauce. It's called Old West, and they've had really good success. But other than that, there was really no one to get in touch with. So I just went online, and I started looking for co-packers, which I wasn't even familiar with that term till I listened to your show. Your show got me pushed into this direction too, because I didn't even know what a co-packer was. And I looked at I tried to find one that specialized in sauces, and I tried to find one that was relatively close to me so I didn't have to drive all the way across the country to visit with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up settling on one in Golden, Colorado, because that's 9 hours from me, which is the closest that I thought was going to suit my needs. And I went with an outfit called Redlaw, and we just kicked it in. They've sent me a 35-page document. I got to go over all of that, and I've got to send them the fee to get things started, to get a test batch going, and that's where we're at right now. I just got the fee processed yesterday, and now I get scheduled for what they call a test batch, which I'm not 100% familiar with that yet, but we're just getting rolling on this.
So how much money are we in between the fees and whatever a test batch is going to cost, whatever else you've done previous to getting the product in your hands to take a test and say, hey, this is exactly what I'm looking for, or now we're going to start the tweaking process? What kind of cash layout are we looking at?
Well, the initial to get rolling and get all this paperwork going, which includes all the FDA compliance and all that, and the new client fees and all that, we're looking at $1,500 to get going. And that's, of course, not counting, I've got a lot of money invested in all the ingredients. I've been making the sauce and handing it out, and I haven't asked for any reimbursement because all I want is people's feedback. and it's all been positive. So I haven't even been charging people around here. I just want to find out if it's worth it and get this going with a co-packer, and then I'm going to have to get real serious about marketing, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I got to see how the co-packer deal plays out.
So once you're done with the test batch, do you then, and let's, everything's fine, we're ready to move forward, do you have to then put in what would be the initial order? And have you guys already talked about what a initial order has to look like? Like, are there minimum order requirements?
Yes, minimum is 100 gallons. And when we get done with this test batch, the way I understand it, is we have to keep, because we're dealing with me doing I think I figured I'm doing a 54-ounce batches on my kitchen table. So we need to ramp all this up and make all the math come out so that we can get the ratio right at 100 gallons and have it still taste the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's a lot of back and forth between the test batches to get to that level. And that's where I figure I'll probably have to go down there with my partner. We're just going to have to visit with them and work on it in person instead of trying to mail that back and forth and keep doing it that way. But I guess that's the next step for us.
What has the relationship with the co-packer been like so far?
Very positive. Obviously, I would like to do face-to-face with them right off the bat, but being we're this far away, I couldn't. But the two gentlemen I've been dealing with there at Redlaw have been extremely accommodating, and the whole idea, what drew me into them is the guy's story from Redlaw is mine. He started out with a sauce that he really liked, and he said it took him close to 3 years to get it to market, and he figured there's got to be a better way. So he come up with this company, or started this company in 2011 to help people like me streamline the process and get your sauce to market faster. And he told me it should be somewhere between 6 to 8 months before I can actually have a packaged branded sauce ready to market.
So we're looking, what is that, June, July, before you have something ready to start selling out?
Yep, that's what we're kind of figuring anyway.
So is there still labeling and all this other stuff, or is that already been taken care of, or is that a next hurdle?
That's all in there too. Yeah, we have to actually sit down and figure out what kind of bottle or what kind of container we want to put it in. We have to go over the label, and he's got people for all of that. So it's a one-stop shop is what this is. So I can be able to do all of that in one building or through one company, and I'll be able to go through my label, and he sends the stuff in you have to go through all the FDA regulations and go the pH paperwork on it and the nutrition panel and all that. They do all that, which is another thing that drew me to them.
Do you have a thought between you and your partner on if you're going to do glass bottle or plastic bottle? I mean, it seems like it's almost cutting into super minutia, but I mean, that's all stuff that plays into overall cost of the product and margins and sale price and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That I go over that with my friends. We talk about that every day, and I've talked about it with my son actually at the kitchen table, and he says, "Well, this has got to be in a squeeze bottle. It's a squeeze sauce, so it's got to be in something, you know." And he was talking about, I think the ranches have come out with a new flip top or whatever. He says, "Well, Dad, you need that because it's a squeezable." It's really good on pizza for one thing. That's what the kids are really starting to enjoy it on, and they just want to squeeze, lines of it across their pizza. So it's not a glob sauce. It's a squeeze sauce. So it's going to be in a squeeze bottle. So it's going to be in a plastic bottle with a squeeze top. And that's about as far as I've gone. I guess we actually picked that all out when I sit down with those guys.
Here's a question that I didn't think about before. So I make a homemade barbecue sauce, and I find it to be best after I've cooked a fresh batch on the stove. It's had, a couple hours of cooling down. So it's probably, a little warmer than lukewarm, but it's not cool by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even know if I need to refrigerate it or not. Long way of asking, does your sauce have the ability to set out like a Butcher's Barbecue grilling oil because it's shelf stable and whatever the ingredients are allow it to sit out, or will it have to go into the refrigerator and potentially get kind of pushed around and potentially lost in the mix?
Yeah, the way it looks now to me anyway, and I haven't visited with Red Law about this yet, but it has to be refrigerated based on some of the ingredients in it. I don't know if that can be adjusted later when they actually make it. If we can put preservative in there, I don't know any of that stuff, of course. But as it is now, yeah, I feel like it needs to be refrigerated, and you know, of course you got to shake well because it could separate out too. But yeah, it's not what I would call shelf stable.
Are you looking to make it gluten-free or no GMO or MSG or whatever the hell everybody's talking about, or is that not a big concern?
Hell no. MSG tastes delicious. I'm all for it.
Deon Bloomenrader is my guest, and he is part of Big Hoss Barbecue, and they have created one sauce, which is actually getting ready to hit test bottles. And here we will go and see the next time where we go. What are some of the high things that we want to mention here before I let you go that we can look forward to next quarter? Things that, like, benchmarks we want to hit.
Well, after the next time I talk to you, we will have gone through the test batches, and we will probably be scaled up to our actual production batch. And I'm even thinking by that point, we'll have a bottle picked out. We should have all the FDA paperwork. Of course, I don't know how long that takes, but the nutrition panel and the ingredient and all that stuff, we should have all that done. And there's actually, I'm looking on my list here, there's a shelf life study. So they actually study that too, and there's a fee associated with that, but they study that too. So I'm assuming we're looking at getting ready to bottle it the next time I talk to you, or maybe possibly even have it bottled by then.
All right. Well, don't let me lose track. I have a very bad track record of having a great idea and then letting it fall through the cracks. So I am counting on you, Deon, to make sure that you are going to keep me on track here. And so I'm thinking, like, what that would be April, beginning of April, end of April would be the next time the new quarter rolls around. So we'll see how the benchmarks have been hit, and also make sure you're keeping track of all those receipts and stuff so we can have a running total of where that cash is going. And this will be a great reference for folks that are looking to get into the sauce business and learn from what you're doing. Again, it's Deon Bloomenrader with Big Hoss Barbecue. Deon, great first segment. Really appreciate it, and look forward to, again, talking to you next quarter.
Oh, me too. Thank you a lot, Greg. I really appreciate this.
You got it. There he is, Deon Bloomenrader. One sauce, everybody. Get your one sauce.